With a history that spans generations of fans and has given us some of the best fictional stories ever told, the art form of Japanese anime has changed the face of entertainment as many of us know it, making strides in revolutionising animation and inspiring countless artists to create some of the stories that they've told. Like a lot of people in the West, my first exposure to anime as a kid was through the venerable shonen anime Dragon Ball Z, which along with a bunch of other shows and movies, helped solidify anime's popularity here in the West and helped broaden our horizons to different forms of entertainment that Japan produced. Since then, I've gone on to love a load of different anime, such as Cowboy Bebop, Fullmetal Alchemist, and Death Note, as well as a bunch of other awesome movies like Akira, or the works of the massively influential Studio Ghibli. Given anime has a history that dates back to over 100 years ago, with the earliest verifiable anime tracking back all the way to the early 20th century, it's almost impossible for every piece of anime ever produced to have been archived over the years. Thankfully, many of the companies that produced a lot of the anime that we have all enjoyed and grown up with, as well as the dedicated fan bases of their respective franchise, have done a good job at preserving and archiving a lot of great anime content. But what about the projects that aren't as lucky? The projects that have been lost to time or were cancelled before they could even see their way to completion? There have been a huge variety of anime projects that fit this description across the medium's history, with various lost and cancelled movies, TV shows, dubs, and a whole load of other projects being unavailable to fans and viewers wanting to see them. Given the absolutely insane amount of lost media surrounding anime, I couldn't possibly cover every piece of anime lost media in this video without it being ridiculously long, so I've scoured the internet and found 13 pieces that cover a wide range of franchises and topics that I personally found interesting and hope you guys will too. So today, join me for what is likely to be one of my longer videos as we go over 13 interesting pieces of anime lost media. The One Piece Star Wars crossover. Now a lot of you are probably thinking the exact same thing I was when I first heard about this. When did two of the biggest media franchises of all time have a crossover, and how have I not heard about it until now? Especially for someone like me. I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. It's quite literally my favourite fictional franchise of all time, so how I never came across this one sooner astounds me. But if you are like me and weren't aware of this piece of lost media, let me enlighten you. I'm sure all of you watching this video are well aware of what One Piece is, but for those of you who somehow aren't, it is a manga series that follows the adventures of the protagonist, Monkey D. Luffy, and his crew known as the Straw Hat Pirates as they explore the Grand Line in search of the titular treasure known as the One Piece. I don't think it can be understated how incredibly popular the manga for One Piece is, and it of course has gone on to spawn the equally popular anime series of the same name that has gone on for over 1,000 episodes and is showing no signs of slowing down, as it is just as popular as ever, with Netflix's live action adaptation of the series being a success, as well as a remake of the show being in the works. Alongside the show and various other adaptations, a variety of movies based on One Piece have been released over the years, the 13th of which released in July of 2016, titled One Piece Gold. In order to promote the film prior to its release, a commercial was shown in Japanese cinemas prior to screenings of 2015 Star Wars The Force Awakens that featured the cast of One Piece cosplaying as the main characters from the original Star Wars trilogy, getting into the spirit of the Star Wars hype at the time as they went to the cinema to watch the movie. The commercial featured Luffy and Zoro dressed as Jedi, Nami as Princess Leia in her slave costume from Return of the Jedi, Usopp as Darth Vader, Sanji as Han Solo, Chopper as Yoda, Nico as Leia in her costume from the original Star Wars, Frankie as Chewbacca, and Brooke as C-3PO. It's also said that Zoro would have been wielding a lightsaber-like sword instead of his swords from the series, and that Usopp would have said Darth Vader's most iconic line, "I am your father," at some point in this promotional short. The short itself has never surfaced online and hasn't seen a release officially on any home media related to One Piece or Star Wars at any point. The only small details we have on it is this one image that shows all of the One Piece characters in their Star Wars costumes, as well as a list of the Toho and T-Joy cinemas that the commercial was shown at, courtesy of an archive of the website for the One Piece Gold film. An interesting thing to note is that while researching this topic, I came across a blog page that spoke about the advertisement for the film that gives us a couple of other details about the commercial, one of which is that the reaction from fans and audiences at the time to this promotional tie-in wasn't actually a very positive one. According to the blog, Japanese Star Wars fans were angry, yeah, nothing new there, about the special video being shown before The Force Awakens, as they felt the collaboration between the two brands made no sense, as they had nothing to do with one another, and they took to Twitter to voice their opinions, with messages such as, "Who is the idiot who came up with this plan?" and "I'm giving the middle finger to the person who came up with it, the person who gave the go-ahead, and everyone involved with One Piece." Star Wars fans just being their lovely selves as usual. That's definitely the first time they've lost their minds about something trivial on the internet. Although it has never been publicly said, there is a chance that the backlash to the video from Japanese fans has led both Lucasfilm and Toei to not release the video on any home media or on the internet, and it is currently unknown if anyone has any copies or an in-theatre recording of the promo. If any of you saw The Force Awakens in Japan at a Toho or T-Joy cinema when it was released in 2015, do you remember seeing the video, and do you remember any details of what else it contained? I'd be very interested to hear from any of you guys who did down below. Unfortunately though, until someone does post a recording of this video online, it is likely that this bizarre crossover between One Piece and Star Wars will remain unseen by the majority of us fans, due to it being a timely piece produced specifically to tie into The Force Awakens' theatre release and to promote the release of One Piece Gold, making an official release from both Toei and Lucasfilm unlikely at this point. Pokémon the Movie 3, The First Draft. Another anime series that helped popularize the art form with younger audiences in the West was, of course, Pokémon. With a backing from the successful Pokémon video games and trading cards already behind it, the Pokémon anime series premiered in Japan in April of 1997 to massive success, with the show now running for over 1,000 episodes, with various iterations releasing to coincide with each new iteration of the game series. With the humongous success of the Pokémon anime, there came ideas of how to expand the anime series even more, one of which was the idea to produce movies that tied into the show. There have been so many of these released over the years that it's honestly hard for me to keep up as someone who is only pretty casually into the Pokémon franchise, with some even getting remakes to reanimate them in a different style to varying degrees of success. And while there are a lot of these movies that have been produced over the years, the piece of lost media we're going to talk about today concerns the third movie in the series, titled Pokémon 3 the Movie, Spell of the Unknown Entei, which released in Japanese theatres in July of 2000, before making its way to American theatres in April of 2001. The film follows series protagonist, Ash Ketchum, along with his friends as they journey to the town of Greenfield, where they discover a mysterious Pokémon known as the Unknown. The film was the final Pokémon film to be written by series veteran Takeshi Shudo, known for being the main writer of the anime series and the creator of Lugia, who retired from writing the Pokémon movies after completing this third film. While many fans of the show likely have fond memories of watching this film in their childhood, the film was almost an entirely different story, as Shudo had written a different draft of the film that ultimately ended up not seeing the light of day. He revealed details of this first draft of the film on his blog and stated that the film would have originally been about how the world came to be inhabited by the Pokémon, revealing to the audience what happened to the real animals that inhabited the world before the Pokémon appeared. The plot would have explored this through the discovery of a fossil of a real-world T-Rex that would have been restored back to life in the film, going on a rampage across the Kanto region. The film would then have followed the series' protagonists trying to put an end to the dinosaurs' rampage. This draft of the film was written by Shudo when he was checked into a hospital, receiving treatment for his health problems, some of which were a result of heavy alcohol consumption and tranquilizer usage in the years prior. When receiving an IV drip, the circumstances Shudo was in caused him to think, what kind of world am I in? And this formed the basis of his ideas for this version of the film. Shudo spent half a year developing this version of the film, however it was unfortunately rejected by executives as, in Shudo's own words, the producers thought a story where a bunch of minerals gain consciousness and come to life won't be a hit. Because of this decision, the original version of the film was shelved in favour of the plot about the unknown, and Shudo's original vision for the third film never came to be. A script of this version of the film has never surfaced, and we have no other details about it outside of what Shudo shared in his blog, which I will link down below, as I'm sure it must be an interesting read for those who are hardcore fans of the series. As stated earlier, I would say I'm a pretty casual fan of the Pokemon franchise, but I do think it's a shame that this version of the film wasn't brought to life due to a lack of confidence from executives. It sounded like the idea for the story was sparked by a pretty personal and reflective moment of Shudo's life, and it would have been interesting to see what he would have included in this earlier version of the film. Unfortunately though, we'll just have to speculate what else this version of the film contained until a script surfaces, if one ever does, as Shudo passed away in October of 2010, with any other information about this version of the film outside of the script likely remaining in the mind of the man who gave many fans great childhood memories of the Pokémon anime series. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood Animax dub. One of my favourite anime series of all time is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is the second adaptation of the original Fullmetal Alchemist manga. This version of the show was made in an attempt to create a version of the series that was more faithful to the original source material than the 2003 series was, that eventually went in its own direction after running out of material from the manga to adapt. The series follows brothers Edward and Alphonse Elric as they search for the Philosopher's Stone in order to restore their bodies that were lost after an attempt to use alchemy to resurrect their mother. The show is one of the most critically acclaimed anime series of all time, and one I would definitely recommend to anyone watching this video if they haven't watched it already. An English dub of the show was brought to audiences by Funimation, who, of course, have done dubs for various other anime series, and is the dub of the show that most people who watch the series in English would most likely recognise. However, it apparently wasn't the only English dub that was produced for this series. This is because a second English dub was made by company SDI Media and aired on TV channel Animax in Asia, as well as supposedly airing in the UK at some point, which featured a completely different voice cast to that of Funimation's dub. According to the resume of Hong Kong voice actress Muriel Hoffman, she provided the voices of Edward, Winry, Lust, Izumi Curtis, and Riza Hawkeye in this dub, and the website behindthevoiceactors.com claims that voice actress Lily Trunkale voiced Alphonse, Lan Fan, Mei Chang, Peninia, and Winry's grandmother in this dub. Additionally, we know that voice actresses Catherine Fu and Gloria Ansel voiced characters in the series, but it is currently unknown which characters they provided the voices for. There wasn't a whole lot of information about this dub on the internet for a long time, and it's not even known for sure when the dub was first released, with tweets suggesting it released as early as 2009, and other people online suggesting it aired in 2011. There were also rumours spread around the internet that Edward had a female voice, and that Armstrong had a high-pitched German accent. Outside of rumours and speculation, this dub remained completely shrouded in mystery until September 2020, when a Twitter user named Yui Haruhara, apologies if I butchered that, found multiple clips of the dub and posted them to Twitter. This user had also confirmed on their YouTube channel that they had been given permission to release 4 episodes that had been found, these being episodes 1, 2, 3, and 11, and they can still be found online to this day. While these episodes can be found online with a bit of searching, the video where this user confirmed that they had permission to release the episodes has since been privated, and they have not uploaded any other episodes since. Due to this, the rest of the episodes remain lost to this day, as they never received any official home release, making this whole dub incredibly obscure and rare. Speaking from personal experience, I can't remember the show ever airing in the UK, so I don't know if the rumours of it airing here are true, although I wasn't really watching a lot of anime back in 2009 to 2011 when this dub was supposedly airing, so there's definitely a possibility that it did air here, and I just don't remember it because I wasn't super into anime at the time. Either way, it will be down to fans to archive the remaining episodes of this dub, as it seems a home media release of it is unlikely at this point, since it seems to have been largely forgotten in favour of Funimation's dub. While we wait for that to happen, the dub will remain an interesting and obscure piece of lost media to do with one of the best anime series ever made. Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon The Miracle 4D. I'm sure at one point or another we've all been to a theme park, or for my American viewers an amusement park, and watched a 4D movie or experience, with some that you've seen possibly being based on some sort of famous TV show or movie. I've seen all manner of weird and wonderful 4D experiences at theme parks based on various franchises over the years, such as Thomas the Tank Engine, Lego Ninjago, Angry Birds, and a whole load of others, but none of the ones I've seen have ever been based on an anime or manga series, despite there being loads of these made apparently, one of which was based on the massively popular anime franchise, Sailor Moon. Titled Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon The Miracle 4D, this 4D short film played at the Cinema 4D Theatre at Universal Studios Japan as part of the 2018 Universal Cool Japan event, an event that featured collaborations with popular entertainment franchises at Universal Studios Japan. The story was an original story featuring Sailor Moon and the Inner Sailor Guardians, and had all manner of special effects such as bubbles, projection effects, moving seats and splashing water, pretty standard affair for 4D events and movies. The short film was initially slated to run for just over 3 months, from March 16, 2018 to June 24th of the same year, but due to its popularity, its run was extended to September 30th of 2018. After this date, the theatre was reverted to its regular showings of Shrek's 4D Adventure and Sesame Street 4D Movie Magic, and the Sailor Moon film vanished into obscurity. As of right now, the only content that exists from the film online are a few clips and screenshots that show the film recorded with a camera off the screen of the theatre that was playing it. We can see that the film was animated in 3D, with the audience wearing 3D glasses to make the film pop off the screen, as is seen with most 4D theme park experiences. Like many theme park attractions of this nature, Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon The Miracle 4D was produced to play specifically in Universal Studios Japan and wasn't planned to be used elsewhere. As such, the short itself has never been made available in its entirety anywhere outside of the park, and the clips available online are all we have that give us some insight as to what it was like. There was supposedly an audio recording of the entire attraction available online at one point in time, but this has since been taken down and has never been mirrored elsewhere online. Content from it has become really hard to come by in the years since its debut, and given that there are no known planned screenings for the film in the future, it is unlikely it will appear again elsewhere, as it would be impossible to replicate the entire experience, complete with all of the 4D effects, in a regular theatre. Due to these circumstances, like many 4D films before it, Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon The Miracle 4D may be doomed to live in the memories of those who saw it back in 2018, unless anyone comes forward with more video or audio recordings that allow us to see more of this lost short film. Doozy Bots. Being one of the longest running and most successful anime franchises of all time, the Gundam franchise has quite a few examples of lost and cancelled projects associated with it, but the one we're going to take a look at today has to do with a slightly different take on the franchise to the main Gundam timeline, known as SD Gundam. SD Gundam, short for Super Deformed Gundam, is a franchise that spun off from the original Gundam franchise and features deformed, almost chibi-like versions of the mecha and characters from the Gundam franchise. They were first merchandised as gachapon toys due to their designs being suitable for capsule toys, before expanding to other merchandise and media such as model kits, manga, and of course, anime. Here in the West, the Gundam franchise wasn't introduced until the year 2000, when Gundam Wing began airing on Toonami. However, this wasn't Sunrise's first attempt at trying to introduce the Gundam franchise to a Western audience, as they actually attempted to make an American adaptation of the SD Gundam franchise 9 years earlier in 1991. Titled Doozy Bots, the show would have been produced by Sunrise specifically for an American audience and would have followed 5 high school students who are enlisted by a character named Professor Doozy to transfer their minds into mechas to combat a first generation of mechas that went off the rails and began to wreak havoc. The series was meant to release in fall of 1991, but ultimately went unreleased as the show was never picked up for unknown reasons. The only footage we have to prove that this show ever existed comes from a trailer that was uploaded to YouTube by user Carlos Obregon in July of 2007, with Carlos saying he found the trailer on retrojunk.com before uploading it to YouTube. There has been speculation that the reason the series was never picked up was due to the failure of the Japanese creators to grasp American culture, and comments have been made about some of the show's content, which might be deemed somewhat offensive. And having watched the trailer myself, yeah, I can kind of see what people are saying. It feels like one of those typical 80s or 90s shows where they mean well with some of the content, but some of it is borderline hilarious with how insensitive it is. I mean, the only person of colour out of this group of teens is in a wheelchair, and he finally has the chance to walk for the first time in his life, but gets his mind transferred into a gun tank. You know, one of the Gundam designs known for having treads instead of legs. I imagine that would have gone down super well with people in the 80s and 90s. As of now, the trailer is all we have from this show, although very minor elements of it were used in another SD Gundam show, co-produced by Japan and America, titled SD Gundam Force. It is currently unknown whether or not any other content, such as a full pilot or any episodes, exist, and there is no other information about the show available anywhere on the internet, making it quite an obscure mystery, which likely would be an existence unconfirmed piece of media if not for this trailer that somehow made its way onto the internet. Fist of the North Star, Uncensored.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
Come on, of course I had to start with that classic meme. Known as Hokuto no Ken in Japan, Fist of the North Star is an anime series based on the manga of the same name. The story centers on a warrior named Kenshiro, who uses a deadly martial art known as Hokuto Shinken, which gives him the ability to kill his opponents by striking secret vital points on their body, often resulting in gruesome and violent death scenes. These gruesome and violent death scenes are where our mystery begins, as when Toei produced the anime series of Fist of the North Star, they made it with all of the violence and bloody action intact. However, the violent nature of the show was deemed to be too much for Japanese TV when the show premiered in 1984, and when Toei couldn't find a late night time slot to air the show in, they decided to censor the show in a variety of ways. As a way to promote the show in 1986, Toei released a theatrical adaptation of the manga's first few arcs, but unlike the TV series, the film wasn't censored and retained the extreme violence that made the manga so well known, with the animators going as far to study human anatomy to make the gore as realistic as possible. So yeah, this thing was as ultra violent and insane as you could get for an 80s anime. At some point since its release in 1986, the film version was censored similarly to the anime series, with a lot of the gore being cut and blood in subsequent releases of the film. Since this happened, the original theatrical version of the film, with the violence intact, has never resurfaced and has since faded off into becoming a piece of lost media. There has been some debate as to when the film was censored to begin with, as some believe that it was only censored for the home releases of the film, whereas others who claim to have seen it back in cinemas in 1986 stated that it was already censored by the time it made its way to theatres. Even in its censored form, the film is still incredibly violent, as shown in the home releases, and while this may be the case, we can still get a taste as to what to expect of some of the uncensored violent scenes, as the Italian release of the film on VHS inexplicably features extra scenes from the uncensored version that aren't seen in any other home release of the film. People have speculated that the version of the film on the Italian VHS is some sort of unfinished edit or draft that somehow, without any explanation, made its way onto the VHS in Italy, although the circumstances of how this happened are still completely unknown. Aside from this, and some uncensored scenes that can be seen in a trailer for the film, no other footage of the completely uncensored version of this film has surfaced. At one point, it was believed that the Charles Theatre in Baltimore was in possession of an uncensored copy of the film, as they were holding a screening of what they called the definitive cut of the film in 2015, and users on Facebook claimed that the theatre had said that this was the unaltered version. However, it has never been confirmed whether or not the version of the film shown at these screenings was in fact the uncensored version, as there haven't been any accounts from anyone who saw the film when it was screened there, and no footage from these screenings has ever surfaced online. Unfortunately, Toei Animation hasn't made any official statements on the status of the uncensored version of the film, and outside of the snippets and clips that we have, the status of it remains quite mysterious, and it isn't known if we'll ever see the uncut version of this 80s anime classic ever again. Dreaming Machine. So for those of you unfamiliar with his work, Satoshi Kon was one of the most revolutionary and influential anime film directors of all time, directing masterpieces such as Paprika, and my personal favourite anime film of all time, and just one of the best films ever made in general, Perfect Blue. Both of these films would go on to have similarities to and influence on some of the most critically acclaimed films of all time, such as Requiem for a Dream and Inception. While he was and still is considered to be one of the best directors to ever be involved with the medium, Kon's directing career actually wasn't particularly long, as he only directed 4 films before unfortunately passing away at the age of 46 due to a battle with pancreatic cancer. Before his passing, Kon was actually working on another film that would have been his 5th feature film he directed. Titled Dreaming Machine, the film was said to be a fantasy adventure aimed at a younger audience that featured no human characters at all and instead featured robots as the main characters. Kon himself said that it would be like a road trip movie for robots, with the film centering on 3 robots, a red female robot named Ririko, a tiny yellow robot named Robin, and a large blue robot named King. The film was to be produced by studio Madhouse Inc., where it was worked on up until August 24, 2010, when Kon passed away. During his battle with cancer, Kon had expressed concern to the head of Madhouse, Masao Maruyama, as to whether or not the film would be completed, with Maruyama reassuring him that the film would be completed no matter what. After Kon's passing, production continued at Madhouse using notes and directorial tapes he had left behind to help the team continue working on the project in his absence, with the scripts and storyboards already completed, and with 600 shots out of the planned 1500 already being animated. And while Maruyama had every intention of completing the film, in August 2011, he announced that production on the film had been placed on indefinite hold due to a lack of funds, and Maruyama left Madhouse later that year to found MAPPA, who would of course go on to produce shows such as Jujutsu Kaisen and the 4th season of Attack on Titan. Information on the film remained dormant for years, until August 2016, when Maruyama spoke about the film again, stating that for around 4 or 5 years he had tried to search for a suitable director to complete the film. However, he didn't want the film to just be an imitation of Kon's style, and he didn't want to make that compromise just so that he could say he was able to complete the film. Instead, he said they planned to take just Kon's original concept for the film and let someone else try and turn it into a movie that would actually see the light of day, so that the final film was 100% their work and not a Frankenstein of the work Kon had completed and the work that they would have done. Despite this though, 2 years later in 2018, Maruyama revealed that the film won't be completed or released for the foreseeable future, as he felt that there were no directors in the Japanese animation industry that matched Kon's level of talent, and the film has remained shelved ever since. Outside of the details I already shared, very little is known about the film's plot, although we do have a variety of promotional art, stills, and character sketches that come from various books and documentaries that give us some insight into what it might have been like, although the 600 shots that were animated from the film have never surfaced in any capacity. While it would be cool to see the film completed someday, I honestly don't know if I'd want to see it completed by someone else. Like Maruyama said, Kon's style is so unique and distinct to him that anyone attempting to pick up where he left off would likely result in a film that feels like it was made by 2 different people playing a game of tug-of-war and Frankenstein together after the fact. As curious as I am to find out more about the film, it might be for the best that it's left unfinished, as there is a high chance that it wouldn't be the same film that Kon would have made himself. As a huge fan of his work, it is really sad that such an impactful director's time was cut so short and that we'll never see what this film could have been had he finished it. Unfortunately, for the foreseeable future, Dreaming Machine will likely remain as the final film of Satoshi Kon that we won't get to see. Zero Man and Noman, the Lost Tezuka pilots. Previously on this channel, we've spoken about the works of Osamu Tezuka, the creator of Astro Boy, as well as a multitude of other popular and influential manga characters with his contribution to the world of tokusatsu, Margin Garan. And while that was definitely an interesting insight into some of the live-action work done by Tezuka in his lifetime, Tezuka's work of course stretches far beyond live-action programming, and there are actually 2 anime pilots based on his work that have become lost. Based on his manga series No Man and Zero Man, these 2 pilots were produced by Mushi Productions, Tezuka's animation studio, in 1968, with Zero Man receiving a 4-minute pilot, while No Man received a 12-minute one. These pilots were produced in the hopes that they would be picked up and turned into shows of their own, similar to how Kimba the White Lion and Astro Boy had turned out for Tezuka. We'll start with Zero Man, as it's the shorter of the 2 pilots. This pilot centered around a Zero Man named Ricky, with Zero Men being a race similar to humans with increased intellect and strength, while also sharing similar characteristics to squirrels. Ricky finds out that the Zero Men are planning to go to war with the human race and must find a way to try and stop a war from breaking out and save his adopted family, who are all humans. The pilot was never picked up and wasn't turned into its own show, however concept art from it has surfaced online, showing various different designs for Ricky throughout different stages of development. The art shows that he initially started off as a younger character as he appeared in the manga that the pilot was based on, eventually evolving into an older character looking more akin to a teenager. As for the pilot itself, not much information and no footage from it has ever been archived anywhere on the web. There are no screenshots or video footage from the actual pilot that have made their way online, with all of the information we have from it coming from behind the scenes looks at it. There are rumours that the pilot was once screened in the 1970s, as per a post on a Japanese blog site, however those claims have never been corroborated anywhere else, so it's just hearsay as of the recording of this video. The second of these 2 pilots, based on Tezuka's No Man manga, was also produced in 1968, and as stated before, ran for a runtime of about 12 minutes. This pilot followed a young boy named Nakaja Otaku, who accompanies his father to an important business call. Once there, Taku and his family meet up with 2 humans with supernatural abilities who he is able to learn telekinesis from. They are then seized by a strange man and transported 500 million years in the past to a phantom moon that was observed over Earth. When he arrives there, Taku meets the titular Prince Noman, and he must help him stop an intergalactic war between humans and aliens. With regards to information on this pilot, we do have a bit more than we do for the Zero Man pilot, as we have access to a cast list, and we know that the pilot was partially in colour. There are even pieces of raw cut-up 16mm film from this pilot that have surfaced on Japanese auction sites like Yahoo Japan Auctions. However, it is not believed that this raw film is from the master copy, as the pilot has been shown in private screenings at various conventions and fan meetups before, such as an Osamu Tezuka fan meetup that took place on April 30th, 1979. Along with this, similarly to Zero Man, we do have some images of the pilot that were released in a magazine called Monthly Out that give us a look at some of the characters and designs used in this pilot. While we have all of this out there, no video or audio footage of any kind from this pilot has ever surfaced, and outside of the few images we have from it, it remains mostly a secret. For both of these pilots, it's widely speculated that the reason they were never picked up was due to budget issues at Mushi Productions, so they were both shelved in favour of other projects. Nevertheless, they are an interesting look into what was being worked on by the company in the late 1960s, and I would love to see them unearthed one day for fans to enjoy. Until they are, however, they remain as another lost media mystery left behind for us by the father of manga himself, Osamu Tezuka. Doraemon Robot War. This entry is slightly different to the others on this list, as it doesn't refer to an anime project produced by anyone that had the official rights to the IP they were adapting, but instead is about a bootleg movie looking to make a quick buck off a pre-established franchise's success, that franchise being Doraemon. If you've somehow never heard of the character, Doraemon is one of the most popular and successful characters in all of Japanese pop culture, spawned all manner of merchandise, TV shows, and of course, movies. Naturally, with the character as popular and successful as Doraemon has been over the years, it's no surprise that there are people who wanted to stick their grubby little paws all over it to make some money, with those people in this case being animation studio Wang Film Productions. They're a Taiwanese animation studio who worked with pretty prolific companies before, including Disney and Hanna-Barbera, and they were responsible for the movie we'll be talking about today, the 1983 bootleg film Doraemon Robot War. The film followed Doraemon and his best friend Nobita, who enter a robot exhibition where attendees will be voting for who is the best robot. The attendees vote Doraemon as the best robot, and he becomes a household name overnight. Seeing this, Nobita becomes jealous of the attention Doraemon is receiving and disguises himself as Doraemon. A professor at the robot exhibition also becomes jealous of Doraemon's success and hatches a plan to make a robot to destroy Doraemon. Nobita and Doraemon learn that the professor's robots are scared of a certain gemstone and go on an adventure to find the gemstone and stop the professor and his robots. This film was supposedly released in Taiwanese theatres on February 12, 1983, but didn't do very well at the box office and was limited to a home release in Taiwan, making the film very rare and hard to come by. The only information and incredibly small amount of footage that we have from Doraemon Robot War comes from a user named Emson Chang. He posted screenshots of the film to his blog and posted a 30-second clip of the film to his Facebook page. However, he became annoyed when people decided to repost his clips to YouTube and has refused to upload anything from the film since. He claimed his father bought the copy of the film he owned at a DVD store and stated that bootlegged home video releases of movies were pretty common and popular in Taiwan during the early 1980s, which is most likely how he managed to get his hands on the film in the first place. One thing that's worth noting is that, as stated previously, Wang Film Productions were known for working with prolific studios like Disney and Cartoon Network, so many find it strange that they would have worked on a Taiwanese bootleg based on a venerable brand like Doraemon. That is, unless it wasn't a bootleg. Now, the evidence for this is largely speculation, but there is some information that suggests the film may actually be official in some capacity. This is because Emson Chang said that he had received a takedown request to remove the clips he had uploaded, with this takedown request coming from Doraemon's original publisher. This suggests that they may have some level of ownership over this film, and that it may have just been a project that was outsourced by Doraemon's actual publisher to Wang Productions for distribution only within the Taiwanese market. Or they just took advantage of the practically non-existent copyright law in Taiwan at the time, so they could make some money, and the rights holders behind Doraemon just claimed it as it was a bootleg project using their IP that they probably didn't want out there for one reason or another. That's also definitely an option. Regardless, the film remains shrouded in mystery, as the only information and footage we have comes from Emson Chang, with no other person posting anything to the internet with new information since. If this film were to be found, it would likely be through bootleg recordings that were made available in Taiwan at some point, whether that be on VHS, Betamax tapes, or a DVD version of the film like the one Emsung had. Given how obscure this film is, and the fact it seemingly didn't see a release in any other part of the world outside of Taiwan, there is a high possibility that this one will remain lost for quite some time, as it seems to be near impossible to track down a copy of this thing, and there are currently no other known copies of it in circulation outside of the one Emsung had. And while this may or may not be an official film, the mystery surrounding it makes it all the more intriguing to me, and I'd love to see it found one day, so we can learn more about this oddity of the Doraemon franchise that likely should never have legally been made in the first place. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood. Perhaps one of the best known and most sought after pieces of lost anime, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood is a film based on the incredibly popular manga JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Produced by Studio A3P, the film was made to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the JoJo manga and the 25th anniversary of the career of the manga's creator, Hirohiko Araki. As the title implies, the film adapts the first main story arc of the JoJo manga, titled Phantom Blood, and follows the battle between protagonist Jonathan Joestar and his adoptive brother Dio, after Dio uses an ancient stone mask to turn himself into a vampire. The film was released in Japanese theatres in February of 2007, with its last known screening being on the 9th of April 2007, after which the film vanished, receiving no home media release of any kind. It has been widely speculated as to why this was the case, as no one involved with the film has ever come out and officially said why the film never reappeared, with several theories as to why it never reappeared popping up over the years. These include the negative reception of the film having an impact on it receiving a home release, Studio A3P losing the rights to the JoJo franchise due to a controversy where a 2000 OVA they made that adapted the third part of the manga, Stardust Crusaders, depicted the villain Dio reading a Quran, and perhaps most damning of all, it is rumoured that Araki himself hated the film so much that he refused to release it on home video. Now, from what I could tell, this is just a rumour and not actually confirmed by the man himself, but this could be due to a lot of the changes made to the film that omitted and changed a lot from the original source material. This included the removal of certain plot elements and characters, including Speedwagon, who is a core character from the original manga version of Phantom Blood. His omission here is really strange and probably didn't sit well with fans, contributing to the film's negative reception. While this may be the case, there technically is no source for Araki's opinion on the film either way, and considering he has been quoted as saying that directors are free to destroy his original universe in the past, I don't know that it would have bothered him too much that things were changed in this adaptation. Regardless, even though the film has seemingly vanished off the face of the earth after its theatrical release, we do still have some footage from the film thanks to various sources. The first, and only pieces of footage that were available online for a long time, were a teaser trailer for the film that was released on a pre-order bonus DVD for the PS2 game that was made to help promote the film, as well as a theatrical trailer that was downloadable on the film's website. There was no other footage of the film available for a very long time. That is until 2012, when a student from the Academy of Arts University uploaded the first 16 minutes from a work print of the film to YouTube. He said that it was a project given to him by the university that was apparently provided by the film's composer to be used as course material for sound design projects. I don't know why or how it came to be that the film's composer decided to provide this portion of the film to the school, but I'm definitely not complaining. With this one, I think we need to count our lucky stars and take advantage of whatever footage we can get our hands on. Interestingly, there is also a 2.5 minute test animation that was shown at the 2004 Tokyo International Anime Fair that was bought in an eBay auction and uploaded to YouTube by user Mangomation. This test animation isn't indicative of the final film or its contents in any way. This is because the preview features scenes and characters that are not in the final film, including Speedwagon, who, as stated earlier, was not present in the final film. The fact that we have this, but not the film itself, is really strange, as this test animation was likely not meant to be seen outside of the anime fair, whereas the film was made with the intention of being shown to a general audience. With that being said, I'm curious what the actual reason is as to why the film has never reappeared after its theatrical release. It was released during a time where home media releases for films weren't uncommon, and it's based on an insanely popular manga which had great success and still continues to this day. If I had to hazard a guess as to which of the theories was true, my guess would be the fact that the studio responsible for it lost the rights to the JoJo series, and a combination of that and the negative reception the film had made it hard for anyone to justify a home release. One interesting thing I stumbled across on the Lost Media Wiki write-up for the film was a response from an interview with one of the film's character designers and animators named Junichi Hayama. He was asked why the film was never released on home video, and he responded by saying, "I don't want you to see me angry and pissed off, so it is better if I don't answer this question." I don't know what he could have meant by that, but it sounds like his opinion of the film, or something to do with it or its production, isn't particularly high, if it would have enraged him to a degree that he wouldn't want to talk about the film in any way. This response does give some level of proof that those who said the film wasn't released due to its poor reception may have been right, but until we get some official confirmation from someone involved with the production, it still remains just a rumour. Whatever the case may be, the bottom line is that the film still remains lost and shrouded in a lot of mystery to this day, with it largely being forgotten outside of the lost media community and the JoJo fanbase. Maybe someday it will be uncovered and we'll find out why and how exactly it evaded a home release, but for now, we're stuck with the very little footage we have of this truly bizarre film based on JoJo's bizarre adventure. The Osamu Tezuka Academy Awards. Earlier in this video, we spoke about some of the lost works of famed manga artist Osamu Tezuka, and while those are both two interesting pieces of lost media to do with the man, they're far from the only pieces of anime lost media involving the works and characters created by Tezuka. Another piece of anime lost media associated with him is a TV special that aired in 1999 titled the Osamu Tezuka Academy Awards. This special was made 10 years after Tezuka's passing by Tezuka Productions in order to celebrate the new millennium. According to the official Tezuka Productions website, the special centered on Ochanomizu Mizu, a central character from the Astro Boy series, presenting various characters created by Tezuka with awards based on their performances throughout the years. The awards were split up into categories as they are at the actual Academy Awards, with the final award known as the Grand Prize being awarded to everyone. The only real information we have on the special comes from the official Osamu Tezuka website, which tells us that the special aired on New Year's Eve in 1999 on the TV channel TBS on their 38-hour television block. It ran for 25 minutes and 30 seconds from 9 until 9:30 and featured live footage of celebrities alongside the animation. Which celebrities appeared in the live action sections is currently unknown, as none of this special has made its way onto the internet, with the only stills we have coming from Tezuka's website and listings of animation cells that have appeared on Japanese auction sites. Another interesting piece of information that the website gives us is that the special aired as a double feature alongside a special by another anime production company, Tatsunoko Productions. Both the Tezuka special and the Tatsunoko Productions special aired as part of a segment called 20th Century All-Star Anime. While it has never been confirmed, there has been some speculation that Tatsunoko's involvement with this segment may be what has prevented this special from resurfacing in any official capacity since its airing. Outside of the stills and information I've shown here, there is no other information on this special available anywhere online, and it appears to be a more obscure and rare piece of media from Tezuka Productions. As of 2025, it is completely lost as far as audio or video footage is concerned, and it isn't known if it actually aired again after its initial release on New Year's Eve. If it never did air again, and Tatsunoko's involvement is what's stopping it from being re-released, fan recordings of the special when it aired on TBS may be the only hope we have of finding this special that celebrated the legacy of Tezuka Productions and the man who originated it. Pretty Cure and Pretty Cure Max Heart Voiceovers Unlimited dub. Now this one you guys definitely let me know about. Unbeknownst to me, there was apparently a lot of you guys who were interested in seeing some more Pretty Cure lost media after I covered the dubious existence of a potential 4Kids dub of the show. So, as the saying goes, ask and ye shall receive, as we're going to take a look at a lost dub of a couple of shows in the Pretty Cure franchise, these shows being the original Pretty Cure and its sequel Pretty Cure Max Heart. For those of you unfamiliar with what this franchise is, or who want a quick recap from the 4Kids video, Futari wa Pretty Cure, also known as simply Pretty Cure, or Precure by some fans, is a magical girl anime franchise created by Toei Animation and Bandai, with each series in the franchise following a group of magical girls known as Pretty Cures who battle against evil forces using powers given to them by special items that allow them to transform. While the most well-known English dub of the first two shows in the franchise were produced by Ocean Productions around 2009, there was actually another English dub that was made for both series for the Singaporean market several years earlier. These dubs were produced by dubbing company Voiceovers Unlimited, who we've spoken about before on this channel thanks to their dub of some of the Kamen Rider shows. The series was then distributed by a company called Odex, a company that's famous for distributing anime in Singapore. The dub of the original series debuted on TV Media Corp Central's Kid Central programming block on April 1st, 2006, and the dub of the sequel series, Pretty Cure Max Heart, followed a year later, debuting on the block in July of 2007. While we have some information about when they aired on TV, it isn't known if they were made available on home media after their initial broadcast. We do know that Odex produced DVDs and VCDs of the series that they distributed around this time, as there are many examples of this online, but there isn't any evidence to indicate that Pretty Cure or Pretty Cure Max Heart was series that they produced any DVDs or home media for, as no copies have ever surfaced and no listings can be found on any retailers' websites to indicate that they carry DVDs of either of these shows at any point. In general, there isn't a massive amount of information about this dubbed version of these shows. What we do know is that the cast included voice actors Chio Soo Ping, Miriam Becker, Chelsea Curto, Edward Choi Ken Chung, Hilary Blazer Doyle, Sean McCabe, and Denise Tan. We have an archived webpage from the Kids Central website that includes a brief description of the show, as well as the fact that it aired on Saturdays at 12:30. We also have some episode titles for both shows that have been sourced from TV guides and newspapers, as well as a couple of very small clips of at least Max Heart airing on the channel. These two clips are a very brief 5-second snippet of a promo that showed the series, and the show's second ending airing on the channel, both of which have been uploaded to YouTube by users Mireille Prison Paradise and What I've Seen on TV Now respectively. The show's opening was also supposedly available at one point in time, but this video has since become unavailable and from what I can tell has not been mirrored elsewhere on the internet. Outside of this though, there isn't any other information available online, and not even a single complete episode of either show with the Voiceovers Unlimited cast has ever surfaced. Even the air dates of April 1st, 2006 and July 21st, 2007 aren't 100% concrete information, as these are just estimates based on when other episodes aired by tracking back at a rate of 1 episode per week, since that's how the show seemed to have aired. As far as finding content from this dub is concerned, I doubt it will see an official release outside of Singapore, and since their time of airing on TV was almost 20 years ago at this point, it's highly unlikely they'll see a home release at all this far into the future, especially since the dubs officially commissioned by Toei and produced by Ocean now exist. If anyone from Singapore is watching this video and happens to have Kids Central recordings between 2006 and 2007, it may be worth scrubbing through them to see if any episodes are on there, as even one episode would be monumental in the search for these dubs. Considering how many comments I got in my last video where I spoke about this franchise, and subsequent ones to cover more about this franchise, it's clear that Pretty Cure has a pretty dedicated fanbase. That's definitely a good thing, as we'll likely need that dedication since it'll be down to fans to find and preserve these lost dubs of Pretty Cure and Pretty Cure Max Heart produced by Voiceovers Unlimited. Dragon Ball Z Kai Ocean Productions dub. As one of the most popular and influential anime and manga series of all time, there was no way that the Dragon Ball series wasn't going to make an appearance on this list, given the multitude of lost media surrounding the series. I'm sure many of us are aware that there are a lot of lost dubs of the various Dragon Ball series made over the years that massively vary in quality, such as the Harmony Gold dub of the original Dragon Ball that was lost for a long time but was eventually found. The one we're talking about today though doesn't involve the original Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z series, but instead it involves the remastered version of Dragon Ball Z titled Dragon Ball Z Kai. Released to celebrate the original show's 20th anniversary, Dragon Ball Z Kai is a remastered and cut down version of Dragon Ball Z, created in an attempt to remove the filler present in the original show, keeping it closer to the story and pacing of the original manga that the series was based on. Like with the majority of the shows in the Dragon Ball franchise, the definitive English dub of DBZ Kai was made by Funimation, running from 2010 and 2013, and starred the likes of Sean Schemmel and Christopher Sabat. What some fans may not know though, is that there was actually an alternate dub for the show, produced by the same company that produced the first dub of the original DBZ, that aired on Cartoon Network back in the day that many fans grew up with, that company being the British Columbia based Ocean Productions. Supposedly, Ocean Productions had created a dub of DBZ Kai intended to be aired in Canadian and European markets sometime between 2010 and 2014, but this dub was ultimately never aired and has technically never been officially confirmed or announced by anyone from Ocean or any other company that would have commissioned Ocean to produce the dub. So, if that's the case, how do we even know this thing exists at all? Well, despite it not being officially confirmed, multiple actors, crew members, and other sources have made references to the existence of a dub made by Ocean, all but confirming that it was indeed recorded at some point. There is a lot of evidence to suggest that this dub exists, so I'll try and summarise the biggest points that confirm it was in production some years ago. The first mention of this dub that I could find online was by Goku's voice actor for the Funimation dub of Kai, as well as the most famous English voice actor for Goku in general, Sean Schemmel. Sean was responding to a user on a Facebook post in 2010 that has since been deleted, where he said, "Here is why the Ocean Group dub will suck, and it has nothing to do with the actors, as I have enormous respect for all of them. As far as I know, the Ocean Group dub is going to have this really shitty music, some of which I have heard, and a whole host of added sound effects such as doinks and boinks, and even in one scene where Bulma simply turns her head in a conversation, you hear a whoosh sound, a la a bad martial arts movie. We are giving you the purest DBZ experience possible, and if you don't like that, then you don't like DBZ." This implied that Sean was aware of the existence of this dub and quite clearly wasn't impressed by it, as it sounds like they were going out of their way to change the style of the show with the addition of extra sound effects and different music. The dub was also confirmed later the same year by the late voice actor Kirby Morrow, the voice of Cyclops in X-Men Evolution, as well as a previous voice artist for other Ocean projects, as he stated on an episode of the podcast Voice Print with Trevor Duvall that he had auditioned to play Goku in a Canadian dub of Dragon Ball Z Kai. This Canadian dub that Morrow referred to was the dub produced by Ocean Productions, as confirmed by actor Paul Dobson in a later episode of the same podcast. Additionally, actors Brendan Hunter and Scott McNeil, who had previously voiced Tien in the Blue Water dub and Piccolo in the Ocean dub respectively, confirmed their involvement with Ocean's Kai dub, with McNeil going as far to say that they had completed dubbing of the entire show, excluding the later produced final chapters that covered the Boo saga. This was also followed up by Brian Drummond, the original voice of Vegeta in Ocean's dub of Dragon Ball Z, stating in 2016 that recording had been completed on the entire series, but he wasn't sure what had happened to the recordings or when the dub would release. Outside of voice actors, there are also various other things that prove this dub exists in some shape or form. The show was listed on the production database for the province of British Columbia in 2010 and 2011, the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission approved 98 episodes of the series as Canadian content in 2014. Chinook Animation, Ocean's Calgary casting agency, listed the show on their website in 2018, and the final nail in the proverbial coffin that confirmed this dub's existence came in July of 2018 when Toei Animation USA confirmed that they are in possession of the dub and were willing to license it out to people interested in broadcasting it. When Toei had stated this, a newly minted Canadian broadcasting company had expressed interest in airing the dub on an upcoming television channel of theirs, but these plans fell through and the dub never saw the light of day this way. Strangely, despite the insurmountable amount of evidence that exists to suggest almost the entire series was dubbed by Ocean Productions, not a single second of footage from this version of the show has ever leaked online. There's no audio, no video, no trailers, there's nothing. We know most of the production team, we know that it was recorded by Ocean's sister studio Blue Water Studios, which gave them access to a wide pool of talent from both Blue Water and Ocean voice actors. We know the cast. We have so much information on it that it is really bizarre to me that it somehow has never released or made its way online in any way. It's almost like the only thing we're missing is the actual dub itself. According to a post by voice actor Chris Niosi on the Kensenshu Dragon Ball fan forums, this dub was created for a very specific purpose that has since passed, and that the last people he'd spoken to about it implied that it was likely to remain in a vault, never to be aired or released physically. And as much as I'd like to believe that it one day could be released, I get the feeling that he might be right. Until some Canadian distributor is able to air this dub on TV, it's highly likely that the Ocean Productions version of Dragon Ball Z Kai will sit on a shelf completed at Toei USA, waiting for someone to release it.